things to do, but but there's also, you also got to let yourself rest sometimes too, you know.
That's that right.
Absolutely.
I learned that the hard way every time. I'm like, you know, I can push myself, but it's hard because the better I get with like taking care of myself, you know, and doing my self-care, the more that I feel like I can like work harder and push myself. So it's this kind of like, you know, balance of like figuring out, oh, that was a little bit too much. But the problem is when you push yourself too hard, you have to like overcorrect the other way, and it like lingers with you, which I've been dealing with that a little bit, but you know, it's been good though.
Yeah.
How about you, Rod? How have you been doing?
Man, the same thing. Balancing a bunch of stuff. Hey, Kyla. Balancing just a bunch of stuff. Like, and a lot of it is a great deal of independent work. So I'm not, you know, when we were working last, and I'm sure I'll get into this, but when we were working last time, we were working on, you know, we were working on Amplify and everything, and I had a schedule where, you know, I had classes and stuff like that, and now everything is kind of on me. So it's become even more difficult. Self-discipline is super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel that discipline, like that word in itself is such a strong word when you're trying to manage yourself and your time, you know.
Yes. It crosses over into
Yeah.
so many different things. You know, self-discipline is just such an important skill in so many different areas of life. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm working through it. Things are progressing. I'm in my program and I'm writing and I'm having a good time. Well, relatively.
That's dope. That's dope. Yeah, it's like same kind of here. It's like when you take away a little bit of that structure of what you're used to, of like, hey, this is the structure, you got to get these things done by these times, and you have these meetings at these times, and blah blah blah. When you take that away a little bit, and you're relying on yourself to manage your time and prioritize, like when you have, you know, 10 20 things on your list, and you know, you can only get 2 or 3 things done each day, and you're trying to figure out, hey, what's the most important thing for me to do? That's some of the hardest stuff to figure out for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a perfect example of that last night. Somebody sent me a record to master.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually an entire album, and really, I just kind of ran it through a system and made some adjustments to it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had stuff to do last night, and I said, you know, let me just take 45 minutes to just kind of listen through this, start some initial steps before, you know, and 45 minutes turned into 3 hours. And I'm up super late trying to catch up on my time, doing the other things I needed to do, and that kind of leaked over into the morning. So, yeah, self-discipline is just a daily kind of, it's a daily thing.
Yeah, and I love that point too of like when we're working and doing these things like mastering, or like, you know, even me with like marketing stuff or social media or making videos or whatever it is, it's like a lot of the time it can just take so much more time than you really expect it to. And that is that's been one of the hardest things for me, is like, okay, I took on this video project, like, you know, I'm gonna get it done in a couple days, and then like 10 20 hours later you're like still working on it, like trying to finish it, trying to make it perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's that aspect of time management, when especially when you don't know exactly like how long things are going to take, is really tough. One thing that Dan always says that, you know, I haven't fully, you know, been able to implement, I feel like, it's like when you're thinking about your schedule, take how much time you think something's going to take and double it, and then put that much time into your schedule for it. You know, that's the suggestion from the man.
He is not wrong.
In my case, I probably should like quadruple it or times it by 10, and then but it's hard for me to do that, because it's like I want to believe that I can get more stuff done than that a lot of the time, you know what I mean? And it's like I wake up and I'm like, hey, I want to get like these 5 things done, and I end up getting like 1 2 things done. You know, it's tough. But cool, we'll get started here. anyone, that might not know, this is being put on by the new arts management program at WCC. So really excited about this program. It's a great opportunity for artists to learn how to either manage yourself, your own careers, your own business, or even just gain the skills that could get you, a job in your field. A lot of the time as artists, we think that we have to make, like, the only path that we'll be happy with is making money from our art. But that is not the case a lot of the time. And if you can, either get a job in your field or put some skills together where you could still work in your field, that can be a great path to help facilitate your art and facilitate the career that you want and stay in your industry, stay networking with people, stay getting better. And, which those are all things that you need to do to succeed with your art. So check out, I just put the link in the chat. And if you're watching this afterwards, I'll drop the link in the comments. Check out the arts management program at WCC. We're really excited about it. My class, Self-Management for Working Artists, is a part of that program. And, we're going to have an internship class as well, where we're pairing people with dope internships in the community and getting you to network and getting you, out in the community like that. So please check that out. We're super excited about it. And thank you everyone for being here. And thank you everyone in the panel for coming. We got Rick, we got Rod, we got Kenyatta, we got London, some legends from the area, all in their own respective ways. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. The way that we're going to do this is we're just going to kind of go through one by one, allow each person to talk about, what they do, where they come from, all that kind of stuff. And we'll go through, one at a time. And if anyone has any questions, we will allow time for each person to answer some questions after they're done talking. So first, we are going to start with Rick. And Rick is co-founder and CVO, Chief Vision Officer at Grove Studios. I love that. Grove Studios is, an amazing space that I've worked with for years. It's, in my opinion, it's the nicest, like, self-serve. It's the only self-serve rehearsal and, recording studio in this area. I don't know of anything else where you can just, book the time, go there. They have such amazing equipment for you to take advantage of, whether you're a band or a producer. You got a lot of hip hop producers going in there. Even if you're just mixing or mastering, I know Rod's been in there mastering before. You know what I'm saying? They got the panels there. It's really nice. So thank you, Rick, so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Max, I really appreciate the kind words. We, Grove Studios was, as artists, right? Like the co-founders, all of us are musicians ourselves. And, we were personally frustrated by the fact that there wasn't a space like this. Living in a, more urban area, like there's just, you're close to other houses, you're close to, you might live in a condo or an apartment, or you have neighbors. And, being musicians, you have to be loud sometimes. And that just didn't work. And any of the spaces that that formerly existed, either lacked in quality or they just didn't last long. Prior to us, there was Spur Studios, which lasted a few years, but it didn't sustain itself for one reason or another. And so it's part of that is how we created Grove Studios. And obviously we have a larger vision beyond being in Ypsilanti, but it's really just a dream. If I think about, what would my 16-year-old self say to my current self about, what it is I get to do now. And, being able to work in the music industry, both, as an artist, but also someone that does other things in music and the creative industries. I think my 16-year-old self might think that's okay, but I didn't start out this way. I actually, out of college, I was a teacher for 10 years. And even prior to being a teacher, I worked in retail. I worked for Guitar Center actually as a salesperson and a manager. And, I paid a lot of tuition working in retail and working for music retail specifically. But it also, it taught me a lot, right? That was the tuition that I got there. And I eventually found myself as an educator, and that piece of lifestyle that at least that afforded me for those 10 years that I taught was that I did have a block of time every year, a couple of months in the summertime. And often I did have work to do for teaching, but I did have some time where I could dedicate to focusing on still being an artist. And I know Rod can relate to that story as well. But it allowed me to sort of have that dual path, always with this eye that one day I would be able to position myself in a way within art and music and creative industries, to be wholly in that. And for the last, year, I've actually been able to step into fully working on Grove Studios and some of the other things surrounding that, in terms of, the idea of real estate and construction and our, which you see behind me, the constructing of the Grove Pod, which we're still working on. When you said everything takes twice as long as we think it's going to take, we thought we would have the Grove Pod built, 2.5 years ago. And so we're 5 years in, and that's okay. Things are still progressing, just a lot slower than I thought they would.
Hey, being 5 years into being a business and still existing is a pretty good feat. A lot of people cannot make it to that 5-year mark. And what you guys have done with Grove is so amazing. You've really provided a space for the community to be able to do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. I mean, you're at the core of what you're doing. You're helping people and people that helping artists. And I know at Grove, we always said, we believe that music makes the world a better place, and that's honestly why I am so passionate about helping artists. And I just love helping people who help people. And I'm a strong believer that artists at their core is one of the best ways to help and relate to people on one of the largest scales that you really can. We connect with artists so much deeper than almost anything else, So I think that you guys are doing amazing stuff, and I love the idea of the Grove Pods. I can't wait to see that come to fruition. And thank you so much for talking to us today. As far as self-management, our class is self-management for working artists. What does self-management mean to you, and how has self-management affected your career? Like, what are the most important skills that you think have helped lead you to the position that you're in? Because you might feel like, hey, 5 years in, we're not where we want it to be or whatever. But honestly, like for my students and for anyone else watching, like your career path and what you've been able to do in the industry is very impressive, and it's something to be looked up to. You know what I'm saying? So,
I appreciate that. I mean, the self-management thing, when you said, you're 5 years in, and a lot of businesses can't necessarily say, or there's a lot of businesses that fail prior to that point of achieving that 5-year thing is something that business people talk about a lot. And when I think about that as it relates to artists, we have to, as an artist, we have to be business people too. We don't necessarily want to be, because we really want to focus on our art, right? Because that's what we're super passionate about. We're not necessarily passionate about business, right? Otherwise, we might have an MBA and we might be doing something in business, right? We might be working for a brokerage or a bank or real estate or whatever the case is. And for me, it took me a long time in my, my path as an artist to realize how important that piece was, and to really understand that you were, as an artist, you're also building a business, right? Just like we're building Grove Studios as a business to serve creatives. It's the the strategies and everything that you have to put into place, right? The legalities of it, right? Having an LLC, having a business bank account, having a tax identification number. I mean, there are foundational business things that you have to set up in order to actually say that you're operating a business, even as an artist. And so as you grow as an artist, those foundational pieces are going to become even more important, particularly when other parties become involved with your art or your business. It's no different in our Grove Studios world as a brick and mortar service-based business. We engage with other parties, contractually speaking. We have to hold up our end of the bargain. Same thing as an artist, right? There are lots of reasons that there are going to be other parties. Record labels, for example, there are going to be contractual obligations there. So having those foundational pieces set up, is important. And as a younger artist, I didn't really understand that, and everything was a bit more loosey-goosey. And it's not that way anymore, right? And it can't be. And I think if you want to find a level of professional success as an artist, you definitely have to do some of the things you might not necessarily feel like doing, but they're important.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The business side is definitely so important. And I think we sometimes forget that as artists, is we just want to make our art and we want the world to just accept our art as it is. But the fact is, if you don't understand the business of how your section of art works, or the business of marketing, or the business of like promoting yourself, or the business of the industry, like you were saying, record labels, like if you don't understand how this stuff works, you're either not going to be able to make it happen by yourself, and you're going to rely on something like a record label to make it happen for you. But when that happens, and if you don't understand the business, you will get taken advantage of, and you will end up in a situation that you weren't really expecting. I mean, contracts, as artists, definitely in the beginning, we don't usually deal with contracts, and we have to understand that contracts are set in stone. It's like when this contract is made and you sign that thing, you're really like, you can't really get out of that. It's pretty hard. So understanding the business aspect of what you're doing is so important. Love that, Rick. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Rick?
Yeah, I was actually curious, when you were a teacher, what were your thoughts of music, and was it something you did on the side, or was it something you're planning to do at some point? I'm just curious.
Yeah, life is complicated, and I think we can all agree. And sometimes life takes you in different directions. Quite honestly, when I became a teacher, I had some my decision to become a teacher and not pursue art as a full-time endeavor, was a fairly conscious choice, and had to do with personal relationships. I met someone in college that was on a path to become a teacher, and I had always enjoyed working with young people. I'd even, as prior to that, I'd worked at summer camps and worked with young people, and for me, it was a way to have what was probably more of a predictable income at that stage in my life. I didn't come from a scenario where money was plentiful. I came from a working class blue collar town with working class parents, and so I had to look really hard at what could I achieve at that time. Looking back, I think had I dove into just being an artist, I think I might have figured it out anyway. But I also didn't have the skills or the maturity at that point in my life. Me personally, I'm not saying people at that age don't. My wife was certainly more mature than me when I met her, and she's 4 years younger. But foundationally, I felt that I needed something more steady, more predictable, and that was the best path for me at the time. But it did afford me time to, outside of the demands of the job, which are tremendous, right? Particularly during the school year. But the school year is 185 days long. And, outside of professional development, things I needed to do, maybe at the beginning of a summer or towards the end of a summer, I had this large chunk of time during the summer where I could do, I could plan ahead for the following year, schedule out playing, like doing music festivals throughout the summer. That was a big thing I always enjoyed doing. We got paid for it in the various, bands and acts. And then of course, prior to having kids, I had weekends, and I was a bit of a weekend warrior artist, right? The band that I played in at the time, we played together for about 5 years. We did a lot of just working musician gigs, 3 hour or, 45-minute sets a night, learning tons of covers, right? We probably had 50 or 60 covers under our belt, plus our original music. And we were able to self-fund the recording process. One of the first albums I ever made, because we were such a working band, we spent probably about $10,000 on that, on one of my first, what I would call professional recordings. And I'm still really proud of that recording to this day, but not having to worry about how I was going to afford groceries, how I was going to afford to, have a car and things like that, sort of afforded me a dual life. But that's not for everyone. I think some people are just maybe way more destined to just live the solo sort of artist life, and you dive in at a younger age and go there. For me, as I get closer to 50 years old, I'm looking forward to a time in the next 5 years that I can actually tour, and I feel like I'll be in a better position to do that. But the age of my life doesn't matter to me. It's just a goal that I have. And I'll just say this last thing. If you've never read the book, Stage Performance by Livingston Taylor, a lot of students that attend Berkeley read that book. He's a professor at Berkeley School of Music, James Taylor's brother of all things. But it's a great book. And one of my biggest takeaways was that don't compare your career to anyone else's, because your path will undoubtedly be different than anyone else's career. And that's been true in my own life. I had, certain aspirations younger, but I've adjusted those expectations over time. And I think it's actually landed me in a better place. And just accepting that this has been my path and still is.
Yeah, I love that so much. And, Rick is in an amazing band called the Day Nights. And the thing about, having all that time to be able to work on your craft also is you guys are just so incredible. Like the level of skill, and you in particular, like on your guitar and everything, is just so incredible, and I think it is also so important for artists to realize, especially in today's day and age, if you want to promote yourself, if you want to make it happen yourself and not rely on these big businesses that are going to take 50 to 90% of what you make to put you out there. If you want to do it yourself, you need money to promote yourself. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Money is necessary not only for your food, for your housing, but to promote your art in the beginning. I mean, you're competing with these labels and these artists that have, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that they're dumping into ads and dumping into advertising and all this stuff. And, us as independent artists is, it's so hard to compete with that if you don't have some sort of budget to be able to promote. And it's so hard to get yourself to a level where even these bigger businesses that you might, like a booking agent or a record label or any of these businesses that you might want to be involved with, it's pretty much impossible for you to get yourself noticed by them without having money to promote. I mean, you have to really hit those algorithms in the right way over and over and over again. And that can be really hard to do. So I love that. And I also love something that you said where it's like, what would your younger self think of you now? Like a lot of the time I'll get down on myself like, oh, I wish I was more successful with my music at this point. I wish I was just touring. I wish I was just this, that, whatever. You know, and I've always felt that way ever since I was like 18, 19, when I wanted to, you know, make music and I saw people my age that were doing it and doing it big, you know. But when you think about like your growth, just compare, and it ties back into something else that you said. It's like, don't compare yourself to other people, compare yourself to yourself. Compare yourself to yourself a year ago. Compare yourself to yourself 6 months ago. When I look at myself compared to a year ago and the skills and what I have, you know, it's just, you know, it blows me away. So we can always get down on ourselves about what we haven't yet achieved. But it puts it in a little bit of perspective when you compare yourself to where you used to be or to what your aspirations used to be. And another cool thing that you said that I wanted to point out is like, it's okay to adjust your expectations. You know, I had this expectation of myself that if I wasn't like famous internationally touring artist by the time I was 28, that I would be so depressed that I wouldn't be able to like live my life anymore, basically. Like that was what my expectation was in my early 20s. And I've had to adjust that expectation. But like my life right now and what I get to do with teaching and helping people with marketing and working with amazing people like Rick and Rod and Kenyatta in London is so fulfilling. It's something that I never would have imagined that I was doing, but it's an amazing, fulfilling thing. And I love my life today, you know? So I think all those were super amazing points. Thank you so much, Rick, for talking to us today.
For sure.
Cool. And next up, we've got Rod. Rod is just an amazing producer, educator, you know, just community figure that has done so much for the community here in this area. Rod, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting me, Max.
Oh, of course. And Rod, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and, you know, how your life and career has led you to this point that you're at right now?
So I began as, you know, a fan of music as a young person, graduated from high school, had plans on going to school for telecom and film, but ended up going into education, seeing it as the quickest pathway to support people and to help people, and something that would make a difference on a day-to-day basis. But what I found was the gifts that you have and your passions, they find their ways into the things that you do. So I built hip hop into my educational process, my teaching, my class, the conversations I was having. And as I turned into, you know, an administrator in K-12 education, I built those programs in as well, to the point where we developed a music production curriculum for high school students, where students were coming to school. Some students were coming to school just to make beats. So I had the opportunity to come to Eastern and lead their Upward Bound program. And in the process, I also started studying for my PhD, and I chose to study how hip hop can be used as a teaching tool, how hip hop or how music technology can be used to teach STEM concepts, what was the true process of the globalization of hip hop and hip hop culture. You know, how does hip hop interface in with equity and inclusion type issues, so on and so forth. So another thing we did was we actually built the Amplify Fellowship. I'm so glad that London and Kenyatta are here, where we identified a way to get some private funds in the hands of artists to craft great music. And the only caveat, they did a fantastic job during our first season crafting that music. The only caveat that was important to us, or the biggest thing that was important to us, was that it was socially conscious, that it was music that was meant to be very personal to them, but also be able to speak to the issues and the lives of a number of other people. So I'm a producer. A lot of the time that I spend involving music revolves around me engineering. And also I'm a thought partner for a number of different things here in town, as well as in Detroit and beyond, just in terms of being able to advise people on certain things and the way that their music makes me feel, you know. And I will say that that's kind of the position that I wanted to play looking back, that's what I really wanted. I wanted to be like Rick Rubin in a way, and just kind of bring people into a space and just say, let's think deeper about the music that you're making and how we can make it connect with people. And that's what I've been able to do. I still do presentations and workshops with kids around town. We work with the fellowship. We do Formula 7 through 4, where we work with young men on music, and just continuing to expand. And I'm hopefully I'll be done with this PhD program so I can really get my boots on the ground in terms of doing some great things involving music.
Yeah, so amazing. So, and you do so many amazing things, and just something that popped into my head is like, what is the most fulfilling aspect, do you think, of what you do and all the different things that you do, if you had to put a finger on it?
A couple things. I mean, I think that seeing kids make the connections between the music that they like and the skills that are involved in making that music, and how those skills translate into other areas of potentially, their career or their vocational life, is something that's really fulfilling. It's all also very fulfilling to see artists move from, I think as artists, we begin by imitating in a lot of ways. We hear things and we try to do those things, which is perfectly fine. I think it's how we learn as human beings. But seeing them come into themselves in terms of having a confident voice and being able to understand and recognize what they do well, and beginning to really build on top of those things, that's really fulfilling as well. And then just seeing, artists or people who you work with kind of come into their own and do their own thing. Just looking at the fellows from last year, they were independent before we connected with them. But to see the ways in which they've continued to grow past our involvement with them has been very fulfilling as well. So I would say all of those things, Max.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, the reason that I ask is like, because when I was younger, all I cared about was being successful in music. I was like, I just want to be successful in music. But as I grow older, I realized that happiness and fulfillment does not come from pure success in music. I mean, there's so many people that are very, very successful in music that are extremely depressed and extremely unhappy with where they're at, So I think that's so awesome. And I love how you've been able to take your skills and your education and be a thought partner for the community. Like I said, helping people who help people. I think, we might not have all have put it in that phrase, but when we can, take our skills and help people, and then those people are going on to help other people with their music and their stuff, we're able to have an exponential effect on humanity. I mean, that's why teaching is so powerful, so I love that. It's so awesome. Go ahead. Go.
I just think that what you said was very important. I think people have to establish their own criteria for success. I never thought, and I rap too. But the good news is I don't have the pressure on myself to be the greatest rapper in the world. I don't have the pressure on myself to sell a certain amount of records, because that's not in my criteria for success. My criteria for success is more so like, when I rap, it makes a difference. I don't, if I win a Grammy one day, that would be fantastic. But if I'm responsible for somebody else winning a Grammy at some point in their career, that's even better for me. Because at the end of the day, I think that what we lack infrastructure. And I think being able to create infrastructure to develop artists and to be able to protect musicians is more important than being the star. And I will also say that I give a lot of credit to music artists, but I also give a lot of credit to music artisans, people like you, people who do photography, people who do videography, because there are many more of them than there are really successful artists. There are many more, there are a lot of Jenny Joneses out here in the world that have not only an appreciation for art, but she has a skill set that puts artists in the right place. And I think if we can build more of those, I think that we can develop something that's bigger than just a singular artist being successful. And That's what I want my criteria for success to be, and that's what I want my legacy to be. So I think everybody that's in the room, you have to really think through what is your definition of being successful and what is realistic, what is probable versus what is possible. So
Yeah.
that's just really important.
Oh, I love that. I mean, and that hits the nail right on the head. It's because, my definition for success was ill-informed. Like I didn't even, when I just wanted to be a successful touring artist or whatever, I didn't even know what that really meant or what the sacrifices that you have to make to be like a major label artist that's touring the world or whatever. Like, I mean, obviously if you can create your own thing, you can have a little bit less pressure, a little bit more freedom. But I love that. Like, what is your definition of success? Because my definition of success used to be, I want to be the biggest artist possible. And that was it. That was kind of like the end of that definition. But now my definition of success is I want to enjoy my life every day. I want to be with my family. You know what I'm saying? I want to spend time with the people that I love. I want to help other people. And I also love how you're always about like the substance in music and like really making music and helping people make music that connects and has a good message. I mean, that's been something that that was one of the reasons why I started making music, is just listening to the radio and being like, why does all this music have to have such negative message? Like, I just don't understand. And obviously there's so much music out there that doesn't have that. But that's been one of my driving forces as a musician to create music. So I really appreciate that perspective that you have. We talked a little bit in the beginning, but as far as like self-management, what does self-management mean to you, and how has self-management affected your career?
Again, I use the word infrastructure. Developing systems to be able to be successful. Like, you're only as successful as your systems, and it's tough. It's tough because you have a lot of things that are working at the same time. We just started our the nonprofit, and developing systems within that has been challenging, just because it's an entirely new skill set. What I learned from studying music producers is that a music producer can learn one thing about a DAW, like a Logic or Pro Tools or whatever. They can learn one thing, but they can also pick up on 5 or 6 other things at the same time. And so I've tried to apply that same thought process to nonprofit leadership, where I may look up one thing in particular, but I'm picking up 4 and 5 and 6 things at a time. So I would say infrastructure. I would say self-managers have to self-assess frequently and be very critical and very honest with themselves about the questions that they ask, about the conversations that they have, about the conversations they need to have, and about where they stand. We talked about self-discipline at the very beginning, self-discipline being extremely important. And then also, when you're an achiever, and people who are interested in self-management to some degree have to be achievers in some way, shape, or form. They believe that they can do something. I think that always focusing on next steps is important, but also celebrating those small victories. Celebrating those small victories, using those as a catalyst to move forward. And then the recognition that you constantly have to expand your skill set. When we started Amplify, I had no concept of media marketing, music marketing, and things of that nature. And I learned a great deal from you, Max, about marketing, about how to go about certain things. When we started the podcast, when I started doing the podcast and you were videotaping the podcast and stuff like that, I had to learn that process as well. And I quickly learned that it was something that I didn't really want to do. So, learning those things, being a person who's constantly trying to expand their skill set is important. And I think, as far as being a self-manager, how it's affected me, I think that it's made me concentrate on the bigger picture and made me more of a visionary than I already was. In a school, you learn how to manage things very, very quickly. There are big picture things, but you have to learn how to manage relationships and things very quickly. But it made me kind of say, okay, what does this look like a year out? What does this look like 3 years out? What do I need to do now to make sure in 3 years that I can kind of not be so stressed out and be able to do things that are affecting the bottom line bigger? So I think being a self-manager has made me more of a visionary, and it's made me a better asset to the people around me who are working towards similar goals.
Yeah. I mean, so many gems dropped right there. I mean, I love how you're talking about systems. I mean, one thing that I've really been trying to do is focus on like first things first. Like when we have, you know, all of these things that we have to do and we're dealing with clients and we're dealing with a job or teaching or school and we're dealing then with our own art. It's like we have all of these, so many things. And it is very hard. I mean, we mentioned it in the beginning. It's very hard to know, okay, what is the most important thing to do first, right? What should I focus on first? And I think you hit it right there with the systems, your processes. Like if you're only as good as your processes. That's something that I've been trying to work on. What's my daily system? What's my weekly system? What's my monthly system? You know, I mean, that's a lot of the overwhelm and the struggle that we have as self-managers is not knowing what to do, not knowing what the next decision, what's the next best thing that I should do right now. And that decision-making process is stressful when you're trying to make a decision. What should I do? That's causing you stress, you know? So when you have a system in place and you know, hey, I do these things, and when you've created a plan and you know, okay, my system is going to lead me over here, so I'm just going to do this system, it kind of takes that stress out of it. It takes that questioning out of it. You know what you're going to do. I love that. I also love the self-assessment. And one thing that I wanted to touch on about that is something that I also talked a little bit about in the beginning is like, we often as artists, we want to just push ourselves, keep going. Like I'm going to work and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to work on my own art and I'm going to do that until I go to sleep. And then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to work and I'm just going to do it every day in and out, you know? And when we are the ones that have to self-assess ourselves, we have to be really, really careful about what our mind state is. And what mindset are we putting ourselves in? If we're constantly grinding 24/7 and we're not allowing ourselves any time to rest, relax, recuperate, step back, and look at the big picture, then your self-assessment is going to be skewed. You're not going to make the right decisions because you're not going to be in the right mind state. You're also not really taking any time. If you're just grinding and you're working, 24/7 and you're not taking any time to step back and look at and say, hey, is this the smartest way that I can be doing this? Is this the smartest way for me to be using my time? Then you could end up wasting days, weeks, years, not doing things in the best way because you're not really looking at it properly. So I love that. And I also love just the expanding your skill set, the lifelong learning. That's something that I have to remind myself constantly is like, I don't have to spend all my time working. I got to spend time learning too, because, even when we master one thing, there's so many other things. We've talked about just learning the business aspect, learning the marketing, learning this, learning that. There's so many things to learn beyond just high school or college education. And there's so many resources to be able to find those things out. So I love that. Loved everything you had to say. Does anybody have any questions for Rod?
Yeah, I was just wondering, would you be able to put your contact information either for Grove Studios or for just any other producers that are in your network? Because I was just thinking about my sister. She's in New York right now, and her structure is like business. So like she works at like a financial analysis firm, but she really likes music and she's like networking in New York and stuff. But yeah, I think she might need like a source for like getting more beats, and then also just insight on career and path. That would be great. So I really like everything you were saying. So
yeah, that'd be fantastic. And thanks, Kyla, for posting my link tree in the chat as well. My phone number and all that stuff is in there. I do want to say one other quick thing because I know we got a lot of people.
Please,
one thing
no,
I've
really
dealt with in the last couple years is my fear, and being able to deal with when I have fear. Because what I learned was when I have a discomfort about something involving what I'm doing, it's either because I have a broken system or I have a conversation that I'm scared to have, or I worry about the repercussions of that conversation. So you kind of, when you encounter that, you kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, is there a system that's broken? And I might have been the one that broke it. Or is there a conversation that I need to have that I've been afraid to have? And then you can strategize on getting those things done and be able to move forward. So dealing with your fear, you have to confront your fears very, very strongly. That's all I wanted to say.
Man, that's so important too, and so fire, because you know, when we, just like when I was talking about, like, if you're not in the right mindset, if you're grinding too hard, you're going to make the wrong decisions. If you're operating from a place of fear, you're going to make the wrong decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's happened to me time and time again. Like when I'm allowing myself to be fearful and stressed, and it definitely is, you're right on the head with the fact that it's like, it's the systems. It's like when I do get fearful and stressed, it's because I'm letting my systems, I'm either not doing my systems properly, or I'm just, you know, forgetting about them or whatever. And or those conversations, definitely conversations with people can incite fear if it's something that you don't want to talk about. But no, I think that's so important. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Rob?
Hey, Magenta, I need to call you. Been looking to talk to you for a while. But thanks for having me, Max.
Oh yeah, no problem. And thanks, Jeff. Jeff is awesome. He's a student in my class. Same with Tim. Thank you guys for the questions. Jeff's an awesome dancer. So if you need any dancers or anything like that, definitely keep him in mind. Cool. Well, we can move on to the next one. Next, we have Kenyatta, an amazing artist out of Ypsi, killing it in the game right now. She was part of the Amplify Fellowship, and you know, that's how I met her. So Kenyatta, thank you so much for being a part of it. Hey, so yeah, can you tell us a little bit about you know, what you do and how your life kind of led you to where you're at?
Okay, so as Max mentioned, I'm an artist. R&B is my preference, but I've done a lot in my journey of music. So I really started performing, and I started performing covers and stuff as a kid. Like I was in elementary school doing talent shows. I got to high school, I joined the choir, I started doing musicals. So I was always in the entertainment realm. Like I knew somehow, some way, my career and my focus was going to be singing and live performance, right? So I started working with different people, putting myself out there, because I was young at the time. So I was taking whatever risk it was. If I was going to be a feature on a rapper's album, cool. If I was going to be performing covers in a barbershop, cool. So at the time, those were my great humble beginnings. And you know, with time comes better networks, and I was able to I was able to manage to meet more people who's providing me different opportunities. And from there, it was a snowball effect. Being in the city of Ypsi, the music scene is hit or miss, because it's something that I feel like anywhere, everybody wants to do, you know, some type of music at some type of capacity, but it depends on with whom and where. I started working on putting myself on bigger platforms so that I can have a bigger backing with the city behind me and seeing what I'm trying to accomplish. And me being a born and raised Ypsi native, I'm like, hey, here's your R&B artist, guys. This is the one. We're taking it all the way to the top. And I can't lie, it's just been a great journey.
Hey, that's facts too.
Big old facts. So from there, you know, as mentioned, I was fortunate enough to receive the Amplify Fellowship scholarship with London and Rod. And that was a whole different type of experience. I was able to be myself. I was able to evolve. I did this music that I put out with this album, The Art of Keeping It Real, which just released in June of last year with this team. It was something else, like life-changing, the whole entire thing. And I happened to do it all while I was pregnant. So today I am just moving gracefully, still trying to hit every obstacle with a smile, and you know, whatever bandages I need to put on, I'm still doing it. I'm still going. It's an experience in itself.
Yeah, you said at the end there with a smile, that's definitely something that I've always noticed about you, is you always have like a great, your attitude is killing. And something that I like to say is like, we can't always control how we feel, but we can control our attitudes, you know? And I feel like every time that I've seen you show up, you've been showing up high energy, smile on your face, you know what I'm saying? And that I think that has helped you like in your networking journey, you know, is because people want to be involved with somebody that is like that. I mean, it's hard. Like if you're trying to network and you're all down all the time and you're having a negative attitude and stuff like that, you're going to have a much different experience, and people are probably not going to want to work with you as much as if you have like a positive attitude, you know what I'm saying? So I really like how you touched on that, and networking as well. You know, but besides like networking, what do you think have been the most important skills that have led to your success and you know where you're at?
Practice makes perfect. I'm gonna start there, because I could show up, but if I show up and I don't have the skill set for what I'm trying to accomplish, it'd be a waste of my time and yours. So practice makes perfect. I'll start there. And then 2, while we're here, self-management, time management, those different things play a huge role in being able to accomplish your goals to get to where you're trying to get to. So I'll start practice, self-management, time management. And I'd also say building a team or working with individuals who can help take the load off to make sure that things are complete for you and that you can focus on the things you need to be focused on as an artist. Amplify did a huge job of that last year. And that was something that I struggle with, is working with other people and trusting that they'll be able to get these things accomplished for me. We were introduced, Max, because you were gonna assist us with media and photos and things of that nature. And that was just like a super plus. They were able to help integrate us with different producers versus, I know London will touch on it, but I love the fact that London does everything from writing to production to visual aid, everything. So, and those opportunities for us to be able to just be like, I can be an artist. I can write freely without the back of my mind running about, did anybody set up this marketing campaign for me? Things like that. Let me see, what else helped me get here? Support. Support is huge. Support, it doesn't even have to look like a stadium full of people. It could literally just be you and your pet. Like just the look in the eye, or my son, you know. I know for a fact that you feel the things that I'm trying to do are going to benefit all of us. I say this because I'm surrounded by people who can see the end of the tunnel with me. So those 4 factors, I feel like it's inevitable for you to be able to get to where you're trying to get to.
I love talking about, you know, surrounding yourself with the people that can see the vision and are there to like lift you up and support you, you know, because a lot of the time, you know, our high school friends or people that we've known for a long time, like, you know, some of them will ride with us and be that person for us, but others won't, you know, and they won't see the vision. And, you know, me personally, I've had to let go of a few relationships because they just weren't, you know, they weren't worth my time at the end of the day. They weren't, you know, they didn't have the same values as me. They didn't see the same vision as me. And, you know, so I really like that. That's dope. As far as like when you're doing shows or when you're charging, you know, for your work, how do you know how much to charge for your work, or when you want to just do something collaboratively with somebody?
So that was hard for me in my beginning seasons, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. As I mentioned, like I did a lot of band work. So I was actually affiliated with the band and not as Kenyatta Rashon. So during those times, I've seen good things happen with how you allocate funds, and I've seen bad things happen with how you allocate funds. So me, myself, I always said that I would never get over or be that type of person to have a bad stigma surrounded by me when it pertains to my artists and monetary things. So I'm always trying to work with a team of people to see what is the budget. What is the budget? What can you afford? Because I'm going to tailor my performance to what you can afford. Now, you're not going to get like no elaborate, super duper crazy live performance because it requires, sound. It requires musicians who I'm fortunate enough to be close to a lot of different musicians who from drums to bass, guitar, keys, and they bring my music to life so beautifully, but they cost. So I have to make sure I'm taking care of them as well as they're taking care of me. So I'm always asking like, so what's the budget? Are we doing track? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Because people love me. They love my stage presence. And I'm also always going to deliver, rather it be me and a banjo. You're going to get a good show. You're going to get a good sound. It's going to be a good time. So, and like I said, back in the day, it was hard to do because it was like standard, like, oh, it's $100 a man, we'll never perform for that or that. Everybody is not able to produce that type of funding for a live performance, but they may need that. So I'm always trying to look out. I know that in the past I've missed out on opportunities which could probably elevate me just based off of the greed of other people. But in today's world, in Kenyatta's world, let's work it out. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you have like a plan for, hey, if you have a smaller budget, it's going to be me and the track. You know what I'm saying? If you got a bigger budget, like we can have that full band experience, and having those different options for people, I think is such a great point. And also asking what the budget is. Like, I love that. And because you might not know, like someone's budget, if someone's hitting you up for a show, they might have a $2,000 budget and you could quote them $200, and you could be missing out. So I think a lot of the time asking about that budget, is huge. I love that.
Yeah, and I would suggest for any artists out there who are looking to be paid musicians, because now sometimes when I ask about the budget, it's already up there. Okay, 2,000, here we go. And I feel so comfortable being able to deliver on those type of payments. Either way, I just want to clear the air. But being a musician, always ask. It's never a problem. What's the worst that can happen? They just don't have it. And then you figure out how to work it out from there. But always ask. Yeah, 100%. Because we certainly do feel great about, when they do come with that correct budget. And we can, it feels much better, and we feel so much more worth when we're like, yeah, I can do that, as opposed to, I think a lot of us, when we start, we undersell ourselves, because we want we just want all the opportunities that we can. And that can be really good. It can get you good opportunities. But also you can end up overworking yourself and spending too much time on things that aren't necessarily moving, your career forward in the right direction. So I think that was great. Anyone have any? And you know what, Max? Real quick, I do want to add this too. For the longest time, I was the person that was paying into my opportunities. Yeah. So I would book a band, but I would pay them out of my own pocket, because I wanted to make sure that there was a live performance based on someone not being able to have, the funding for us. So I've made those types of sacrifices to get to where I am now, because I've been raised to be like, hey, these small things can become a multitude of blessings. So opportunity, rather it be an opportunity, rather it be networking, rather it be another performance, we're just going to continue to grow into the bigger bag. Shout out to Rod for that.
Yeah, no, that's dope, because you really do have to invest in yourself and invest in your craft and invest in that product. If you want the industry or the community to believe in your product, and you're not investing in it, and you're coming up there, with an unmixed track that sounds really bad, and you haven't practiced, and you don't have any live instruments, and it's just like your performance isn't good, you're not going to get those $2,000 opportunities off that. but if you do invest in your craft, you put in the practice, you put in the work to make sure that your music is tight, and you have like a band, or if that's something that you want to do, that can lead to those greater opportunities, so I think that's a huge great point. That's awesome. Anyone have any questions for Kenyatta?
Once again, contact information, social media. Yeah, my sister likes R&B too, so that's like what she wants to aspire to be. So.
Oh, definitely, Jeffrey. I'm gonna make sure you listen to the Art of Keeping It Real, because the Art of Keeping It Real is a very in-depth vibe about myself relating to the actual world and life situations. Like every song on there, front to back, she'll love it. You'll love it too. So check me out. I'm gonna that information provided.
Please, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, I'm kind of in the same boat with, like, I'm in a position where I'm investing a lot out into just out of my pocket to pay instrumentalists and such to perform with me. I'm trying to get more comfortable just, performing to a track when it's necessary, because sometimes I want to perform, but I can't afford to pay my guitarist or like my band connects hundreds of dollars to get through, let's say, a half-hour set or what have you. Do you have any advice for like how to enhance those particular performances? I always feel super naked, like performing to a track only, now that I've gotten into the habit of performing with the guitarist or what have you. So like when I find myself in positions where I'm not going to have them, sometimes I'll kind of like scare myself out of doing it because I feel so out of place, alone, but I feel like it's kind of holding me back and how much I perform.
Oh, Magenta, I totally understand. I've literally been on that side of the bullet. Like, oh no, I don't know if I'm be able to do it, because and all summer long, even especially going into now, I've been able to afford a band and perform with the band, right? So with that being said, I suggest that you I would suggest that you would get with your producer or whomever mixes your tracks and have them do a different version of the song. Do you have your background music? I'm sorry, your background vocals on your tracks? Yes. Okay. Uh-oh, I can't hear you. Uh-oh.
Okay. Yes. Some of I did go ahead and add like my background vocals to them, like my instrumentals. So like I have tried to do that a little bit, but it's not on all of them, and it does sound a lot dry without those added. So I do have to go ahead and do the work and add them to some more of my songs. I never know if it's helping me or hurting me in the moment. Like if it's clashing with the things that I'm doing impromptu versus the things I have playing on the track. So I'm still trying to find the balance between finding the right amount of support to add to my instrumentals, if that makes sense. Because I've got the performing now acoustically. So it's like there's just instrumentation. I get to kind of freestyle what I'm doing in the moment. And then when I try to do that with tracks, sometimes I get kind of like thrown off, like, oh, you did a different harmony on that background track. You threw a run on there that you didn't just do. So that is the awkward transition trying to perform alone to tracks. So
here's another tidbit. If you can get with get with whomever is playing acoustically for you and record that. So have two different versions, right? You want to have the recorded track with you performing and them playing, so that you can hear it back and probably replicate exactly what you did, and then have them play and have them play, get the stems, use that for your live performance. It's so many different levels. Layers to this, because I'm telling you, I'm starting to pick up on different things too. I'm always a student, I'll tell you that much. So I would have multiple versions of your performance. If you need a suggestion on a producer that could possibly work with you on good background vocals and stems, I can suggest one. His name is Sam Watson. Shout out to Sam Watson. You can find him. Yes. I don't know what you're saying because I think you're muted, but I can see the motion. Sam Watson is a really good producer. That was a very good network that I just got from, Sam Watson is a Go vocal producer. He will be able to help you in a way that you probably never imagined. but you want varieties of yourself performing in acoustic. You want the live with stems. You want the background vocals. Even if you just did background vocals with like just raw, have those different varieties of yourself. So when opportunities do come up, you can just jump right on it like this.
Period. Thanks so much. That's appreciated.
Yeah, I'm a fan of you, and I've seen you live, and I'm very appreciative that you're here right now, sharing this moment with us, because there's some gems dropping, girl.
Like you said, always, I'm always looking for something to learn. Thanks, girl.
That's great. Yes, cheers to you and the rest of your career, baby.
Yeah, Sam is incredible. So good shout out to Sam. I've worked with him too, and he is definitely destined for a lot of great things. So working with him is a blessing for sure. And one thing that I wanted to say too about the same thing is like sometimes when I want to have more of a live instrumentation feel, but I don't want like a full band, I will do my track and I'll just have like a guitarist come out and play guitar with me with the track. You know what I'm saying? So that way you have both sides of it, where you got the track really pumping most of your stuff, but then you have that live aspect too. You know, that has been pretty successful with me and my performances, to try and like have it stripped down, not be too expensive, but still give that like extra feel, and have someone else on stage with me, because I know it's not even just like the feeling of that live instruments. It's like, it's tough being the only person up there on the stage with just the track. You know, you do feel kind of like alone up there, you know what I'm saying? So that's something that has helped me too. So
Dope. Yes, Max.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions for Kenyatta?
Yeah, I do have a question. Personally, I am a drummer, right? And I'm just wondering, how do you usually pick out the people that you would want? Or do you have like other people kind of help you network to those people?
You know what, ironically enough, I am an open musician. I don't, it's not by like on purpose that I don't stick with the same people all the time. I'm working with whoever want to work with me. And I'm open to, if you're working hard to learn my material, learn the cover material, and you wanna perform, let's do it. You know, I'll have rehearsals. We'll be able to see if you're the right person for me, for sure. We'll definitely be in the heat of it all, you know, going through things. And can you take direction well? Did you receive what I was mentioning? Are you going to be able to replicate what I just asked you to do or not to do? So it's really about a vibe, but I'm never really stuck with a specific group of musicians. I'm always willing and looking forward to working with different people. You know, there may come opportunity where you might just need to jam something and you play my song. You know, you at somewhere else and you're like, I know this beat, and it, you know, if you Shazam it, it's Kenyatta Rashon. So yeah, I like working with more than just myself, because it continues to open my network and I'm not limited, you know. That was a good question.
Thanks, Alex. Dope question. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Kenyatta, for talking so many gems, so much awesome stuff. I really appreciate it. Next, we've got London Beck, another amazing artist. And like Rod said, just so good at all aspects of creating and recording and mixing and mastering music. I mean, London, when I first heard your self mixed and mastered music, and it was sounding like it came out of, you know, a major label studio, you know, I was just blown away. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So those of you who don't know, I am London. I am a musical deity, if you will, of all trades. Singer, songwriter, producer, engineer. I can add composer to my list right now. Just a whole bunch of things. I came out of the womb singing, but I really learned to find my voice through instruments at the age of 5 years old. My mother passed away, and that event caused me not really to to speak. And so instruments really became the way that I started to open up, and then it opened me back up to where I started singing. Kenyatta and I have very similar beginnings. Once I was comfortable enough to really share my voice with other people, of course, I was always the kid, that was in orchestra and doing that. But once I really started to sing, that really started to open me up. Once I got to high school, I was in assemblies, I did musical theater, that whole gambit. Of course, during high school, super impressionable. So I went through a phase where I was like, maybe, like music might not be the best career. I actually veered for a very short time. A lot of people don't know that I veered into a pre-law career, a pre-law track. I was actually invited to do a summer intensive at Stanford. And I turned it down because I was like, yeah, I don't want to be trapped at a desk for the rest of my life. So
London law.
Yeah, right. Back in associates. And who knows? I mean, I still am very much interested in that. So I might pivot and be like Lil Mo, when I get to a certain point and be like, I'm done. I'm gonna go, fight for the people another way. But I ultimately decided that I get the most fulfillment out of being a musician and being able to share that gift with people. So I ended up going to New York University for music performance, actually for viola, but ended up coming back to Ann Arbor because I had to pivot and be a caretaker for my grandmother. And that was really heart-wrenching for me because, of course, NYU, Tish, Lady Gaga was in Tish and dropped out when she got her record deal, like so many other musicians have come out, Rick Rubin, Russell Simmons. Like I was down the street from the dorm where, like some of the biggest record labels that we know were created. So that was really heart-wrenching to have to kind of sacrifice that, of course, for my family, although I don't regret it at all. And I just kind of went into this mode once I was able to work through, I guess, that grief. And I was like, well, I am destined to be a musician and I have to figure out how to make this work. So I've always been a very astute person. I'm always teaching myself and looking to learn from other people as well. I'll stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning reading articles. I have charts, I have folders on my computer about like sound engineering. Like I'm always looking to learn. If I'm collaborating with people, if I'm meeting you at your studio, I'm looking around and I'm looking at your music equipment. I'm asking you questions, like your favorite DAW. So through that and being able to have perseverance and faith that I was going to be able to make this work out, I was able to really grow this. Toward the end of 2018, I met who I consider my fairy godmother at this point, Jenny Jones, who is with us right now. Hi. I met with her. I was in a spot where I was like, I really want to make this work and I don't know how to. And she was very gracious and took the time to really just help me see all of the pieces on the board. And not too long after that, I booked my first show at the Blind Pig. And the rest is history. And mind you, I booked and was able to headline right out of the gate. I think there have only been a handful of performances where I've been able to open, but thankfully I've been able to really have my music front and center, and the people that I keep in my circle help me to make sure that I am staying in those spaces. Of course, I was a part of the Amplify Fellowship. I'm bowing down to Rick and Ron and Kenyatta. We made some incredible magic. That was a life-changing experience just to be able to extend my music family, and Kenyatta really hit it on the head. It was a great experience because we were all able to be ourselves, and it was really a moment of transformation for all of us. But just to be able to have people who understood in that exact moment, like that was just everything and more. And so to be able to go through that experience and also create art out of that, that was amazing. And then I released the Black Satin Sessions, and then that launched me into the stratosphere even further, being able to work with the ARC. They swooped me up for Art Fair not long after the Amplify Fellowship was done for that season, and then they've kept up their relationship with me. Currently, I'm working on a composition with the high school that I went to. Their symphony orchestra will be premiering that the end of their season. Yes, I mean, I know some of you know, like I keep my hands in many, 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 many pots. And with
Go ahead.
yes, and with that said, I would say one skill that I will tell people right off the bat is, we are creatives for a reason. Like music really speaks to us, but also we have the ability to figure out a way to make our stories that we're telling speak with other people. One of the skills that has really benefited me greatly is just to really maximize my potential, of course, within my limits. There was one point in my life where I was like, I really just want to, like sing and like, produce my music and, really like just focus on that. But the older that I got and the more that I was able to do, it really helped me kind of like see all pieces of the board and really realize that it's not specifically like one thing or the other. It's just, again, just that feeling of being able to tell my stories and share them with other people and be able to inspire and encourage them and give them the empowerment that they need in order to, do what they'd like to do for the rest of their life, even if they just need the, the courage and empowerment just to exist and get through their day. I want my art or my musical abilities to do that for them. And so I have been able to, with my my classical background, viola, I'm a private teacher in the community. I go back to the middle school I went to, the high school I went to. I'm a sectional coach. I go with them up to Interlochen every summer as a cabin counselor. I toward the end of the year, I'll open up my book of business to officially produce other people and do some vocal coaching. So any way that I can maximize my potential, not only to help grow other people, but grow myself, I will do it. Like I said, as long as it's within my means, because I am realizing very quickly, and I tell other people without always taking my knowledge, how important it is also to take care of yourself. I know we talked about it at the very beginning, so that's super important. Another skill I would say is just to kind of piggyback off of the ability to just kind of like self-assess and be in a state of, but I guess more in the aspect of being in a state of constant learning. Like I said, I'm always on some kind of reconnaissance mission. I am, researching how to be a better sound engineer, even to little details. When I am performing it on stage, I am my own makeup artist. I'm looking at trends. I'm looking at, what people are wearing. I'm looking at, just even little details, everything that you feel is going to best represent you as the type of artist you want to be. Like little details help. You see a lot of the little details in my music, but in order for people to get a well-rounded sense of the type of artist or creative that you want to be, like paying attention to those other details are very helpful too. And then the other thing is the other skill is being able to know what your mission statement is and being able to understand what your purpose is and being able to stick with that as you book opportunities or work with other artists. that's probably been the most important thing ever. Back in 2017, I did a rebrand. I've been making music since I was professionally and pursuing it since I was 14, but I did a rebrand in 2017 because I really wanted whatever presentation I was providing to others to really be accurate to what I wanted to do. Like you said, I think a lot of creatives go through that moment of, yeah, I want to be incredibly successful and I want to be known for my achievements. And then you get older and it's like, you know, that the universe is so much bigger than that. The universe is so much bigger than having your achievements gilded in gold. There's so much gold that you can get while you're still on this plane in so many other ways. Like the greatest gold that I ever receive is every week or every other week teaching my kids, being able to, even the composition projects, being able to walk into a classroom and have high school students who are going through their teen angst and honestly at the beginning of the class could really care less in terms of you standing in front of them, but being able to by the end of that class have their minds and their hearts enlightened and have their eyes twinkling and being able to see that little spark and the wheels turning, and then they come to you much later and they say, because of that one moment, I'm doing what I love to do because of you. That's the greatest gold that I have and will ever receive in my life. So being able to stick to what is really true to you and how you want to convey your art. I think that's probably like the greatest skill and practice that I am very mindful of that I could give to anybody else.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all that. That was so amazing. So many great things in there, that I want to touch on. But I love first, like how you take all of your skills that you've built up and you make them revenue streams. You make it so you can support yourself with all these different skills, with the coaching, with the teaching and all that stuff. I think that that's such an important skill for artists to have if they want to manage themselves, if they want to be able to work within the industry. I love that. Also, just you talking about mission statement and purpose. Like the first thing that I always work on with artists is like, what are your core values? What are your mission statement? And I think one thing that really, is very true about all of you guys that have spoken on the panel today is you're very solid in your core values and you're solid in like, what your mission and purpose is. And that causes you to pursue that and have fulfillment from that. And, I think that is so amazing. One thing I did want to ask is we have some producers in here, some engineers in here. You're one of the best producers and engineers that, I've ever seen. And so as far as production, mixing, mastering, is there any like golden nugget tips or any things that have really like helped you get to the level that you're at with those things?
Absolutely. I am always looking for different ways to play with sound. I have several playlists for very different reasons on my phone. And I love to, each playlist has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs. When I listen to music, of course, there are moments when I'm listening to it for enjoyment. And then even if I'm in the car on my way to a gig or to a lesson, or even, to get some Chipotle at 9:00 at night, like I always have my radio up. And thankfully, my car has a very great sound system. And I'm always taking a moment just to, once I get a hold of the surface level elements that I'm paying attention to in the music, I'm always listening for the little things, how the producer might be throwing the sound one way versus another, how the vocals are panned. Like I'm always studying what other producers are doing. So if there's something that I could pass on to other producers, like when you are listening to music, that is, anytime you are listening to music, even if it's a commercial, that is always a moment to learn. You can pick up so much by really paying attention and really being able to look for and separate all of the layers that are happening within, just those 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing advice. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for London?
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Thomas. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Oh, hey.
Thanks, Thomas.
So I know that both you and Kenyatta did the Amplify's fellowship, and I noticed that something that Rod and Kenyatta mentioned was kind of like a hesitation or fear about letting fear for music for just fear for in general for Rod, but like Kenyatta mentioned the hesitation towards letting someone else like work on their stuff. And I know that you produce and you sound like a great producer. I'm excited to like dive into your stuff, but was there also like a hesitation for you, because I know that you produce, and I also producer first, so I'm wondering, like, is that something that is like you were hesitant about, or were you like, hell yeah, this is what I want, I'm so glad that someone else is going to work on my stuff with me, if that makes sense?
I think, and this was a double-edged sword for me. So I think I was super excited. I'm always excited to collaborate. I will never pass up an opportunity to work with someone else and create art. Like, what makes me happiest is when I can create art, and what makes me even happier is being able to do that with other people and seeing what different perspectives, what kind of masterpiece we can all create. So I was super excited about that. At the same time, and probably because of the fact that I have been producing my own music for so long, also because maybe I am self-admittedly a little bit of a control freak. I like to have an active hand in what's going on.
Right.
Because especially if it's my art, and being a producer has definitely helped me be able to, I like to communicate exactly what I'm looking for. If it is not what I'm looking for, I will let you know very politely, but I will definitely let you know. One good example was, there's incredibly talented drummer producer Taylor Greenshields, who did some drum work on the Black Satin sessions for my song True North. He knocked it out of the park. We recorded that very quickly. Black Satin, not so much, and I felt so bad. But at the same time, I didn't, because I knew that the particular track needed a certain type of energy, and I needed the drums to hit exactly the way that I was envisioning them in my head. Like that one took a little bit of time. That one took maybe like an hour and a half. I felt bad because he had to take a water break, and then we like went for it again, and eventually he just like knocked it out of the park. But I would say, again, just to reiterate, double-edged sword for me. Super excited to work with people, but then also at the same time, I like having a hand, because I'm, especially when it's my own art, I'm usually very particular in terms of the execution.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I say something to that real quick as well?
Please.
For London, in London, I don't know if London really knows this, but when we first began and we found out that London did everything, one of our first conversations was, okay, what can we do to take some pressure off London? Like, can we put them with an engineer, or put them with some other musicians? And we very quickly realized, no, just let them do what they want to do, because it's going to end up being whatever they want it to be anyway. So why not just really encourage that level of criticism, that self-criticism, that level, because I think that's part of the allure of London Back. The fact that we put them in the same frame of a Prince, in the same frame of people who really are literal jacks of all trades. So I'm glad to hear, London, not only that you take that very seriously and that it's something that is a part of the fabric of the London Beck experience. The fact that you do all these things, and I was just very excited to hear you talking about it, because it took me back to when I, to when we first started to listening to it through that lens. The fact that not only is it great, but they did everything. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. I'm sorry, Thomas.
And I just have to mention this too, just because I've heard this thread, and several people even mentioned Rick Rubin as a producer. And what you said, London, too, was, you went through this process with T Greens that you were like, no, that's not it. That's not it. He had to take a water break. Like, great producers ultimately also get the best performances out of the artists. I mean, that's why Rick Rubin has been so enigmatic in his career, is because, I mean, look at the variety of artists and the styles of music that he's worked with, right? Everything from old school hip hop to country. And so why is that? Well, it's because he's got that a little bit of that driving vision that you have, which is, I know what it's got to sound like. I know that what's the feel I'm going for, and you're not afraid to do that. And I think that's great. I think that's what makes you a successful producer, is getting that performance out of somebody, because he clearly has the skills. He just wasn't getting the feel, and that's it. Sometimes that takes a couple of hours to do, but the end result is always worth it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And I hear that in the totality of your record too. I mean, and Kenyatta as well. I mean, like, just both tremendous efforts that I would put on par with any major label release. They both incredible recording accomplishments. So
thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to just touch on that question a little bit as well. It's like, I think part of the reason that you are able to collab with other people and have that, give them direction, is just because of your skills and because of how much you've learned and your ability to speak with an engineer or speak with a producer. Like, I've worked as a rapper with a producer before, where they're in the studio, they're telling me what to do, and it can be a very tough thing, because you as an artist can have a very specific idea of what you want something to sound like. But especially because as artists, when we put ourselves in the studio, we want to, with other people, we want to put ourselves with people that are better than us. We want to put ourselves in there with people that have more of an understanding of music than us. So, in my personal experience, I've had a hard time sometimes when a producer that is better at making music than me says, hey, I think it should be this way. And I don't really feel that in the moment. And it can cause some friction. But then a lot of the time, you go back to it later and you hear it and you go, oh, wow, this actually really does work, and sometimes it's like stepping outside of yourself in the moment. But also, like, when you have those skills and the skill sets of being an engineer, being a producer, what reverb is, what compression is, these things, so you can then go in the studio with a producer and articulate exactly how you want it to be, or exactly what you're thinking. So having those skills are so important, I think, with collaborating, because if you don't have those skills, if you don't know the lingo, if you don't know exactly what the song needs, it can be very difficult for you to communicate that to somebody else, so just my 2 cents.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for London?
I just wanted to say that meeting London along the journey of Amplify, like, first of all, we probably have been in each other's spaces, around each other prior to meeting each other for Amplify Fellowship, that hadn't had the opportunity to actually sit down and work and get to know one another. But instantly, I was so drawn to London as an artist. I mean, like it really, I can't compare you to anyone that is working as hard as you that I know in the area that I'm in. Like, I'm not gonna say the state of Michigan. I'm gonna say Washtenaw County, and that says a lot. You stick out like a super thumb. I was gonna say a sword. That don't make any sense. A super thumb. And any artist who's present during this, I would tap in with them. I would tap in with them as soon as possible, because soon the price is gonna go up, because yesterday's price won't be today's price. And the skill set, the talent, the energy, the vibe. London did was it a violin track for me behind a spoken word on my album? So if you listen to the
Yes, the
artist
viola quartet.
viola quartet, oh my God. That is gonna be featured behind a poem on my song I Am. Just know that's London, and it's beautiful. And did this within like 24 to 48 hours. I mean, I can't express how much I really do appreciate having you within my network. So I just wanted to share that.
And likewise, I mean, Kenyatta is like ultra boss lady, entrepreneur. Like, I am still in awe that you baked the Amplify baby. I love him so much during that entire
The Amplify
process.
baby, that's a fact.
Yes. We love little Harlem. But it was super, just to go back to really just that entire experience. Like, for me to be able to work with Kenyatta and Danny was like being among giants. Because yes, like, of course, we had been swirling in, relative circles here and there, but Kenyatta and Danny were really some local artists that I looked up to, that I was seeing were doing really big things. And so just to be able to wake up one day and be like, wow, like these are my peers. Like, these are not only my peers, but like they are now an extension of my musical family. Like, they're a part of the tribe. Like, that's just mind blowing. Just being able to speak with the both of them along the process, not even just what was happening with the projects, but what was happening to us ultimately as artists and as people. Like, that was just a very sacred time that will always be sacred to me.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think one thing that sticks out to me just about like all of your relationships and the networks, we've talked about how networking is so important. But networking is more than just, hey, I know who you are and what's up. It's like all of you and all of us, like with Rod, Rick, all of us together, we've created genuine relationships with each other where we like each other as people, we're friends. And so like, I think in networking, that's so important, to create those real, genuine relationships with people. Because that's what it's all about, is connecting with people and growing that musical family. I loved how you said that. I do have one quick more question. Anyone, obviously, that if you want to go, you can go, but this is just so good. I can't let it stop. London, you have so many different, revenue streams and stuff like that. How do you know how much to charge for your work when you're, deciding that?
Absolutely. And Rick touched it on the head in the chat. Like, it is a very hard thing to address, Kenyatta as well, but definitely necessary. I take into account a couple of different things. Anybody who needs to come on board with me needs to get paid. If they cannot get paid, or I cannot pay them adequately, then we're going to do something else. Because it's very important to me, while I am getting the recognition, that whoever's with me also gets that just due as well. So that's very important for me, making sure that everybody is fed and that everybody's happy and that their needs are met. I'm also looking at what I've been able to receive from past shows. just so that I have actual numbers to look at. I'm looking at how much it's going to cost, of course, for if I need to book rehearsal space, versus if we're able to, rehearse at my location or somebody else's. I'm looking at all of those different aspects, and then if the venue or the event or the festival is able to provide enough to cover that, and it's enough for everybody to be happy and feel like the work put in is being fairly compensated, then I'll go for it. I'm very strategic in opportunities that I take. I love being able to see other doors open, but I don't walk through all of them. So, and I think that's really important as well. I mean, like, all money is good to look at in your bank account, but not all money is great money. And sometimes you do also have to sacrifice a little bit to get a higher reward later. Not that that's necessarily something that I'm looking at, but sometimes you do have to make those sacrifices, and they do end up coming back to you later.
Yeah, I love that too. Like, not all money is good money. I've definitely turned down multiple people that have been inquiring, because sometimes you can tell up front when someone is like crazy, or they're gonna, like, be a problem client, just because of the way that they're treating you and the way that they're treating the situation. And I've definitely come to the belief that if up front, before there's even any money exchange, there's being red flags in the situation. Even if you feel like you could use that money, it's probably best for you to turn that one down, because it's like, you're gonna end, if there are red flags, like, I've definitely accepted money and then like dealt with issues later, after someone's already paid you, after you've already done the work, and now they're coming at you like at 2 o'clock in the morning with like 2 pages in a text, like going nuts. So you gotta be careful. Not all money is good money. I really appreciate that. So thank you, London, so much for talking. Thank you, everybody else that was a part of the panel. And just in case anyone didn't hear, this is being put on by the new arts management program at WCC. So if you want to check it out, just scroll to the top of the chat and there's a link to the arts management page. We're working with EMU and some other colleges to try and create transferable things, so you can get an associate's degree eventually in arts management at WCC, and then transfer to one of these bigger universities really easily to get like a bachelor's degree or something else if you would want. But thank you all who came, listened, asked amazing questions. You guys made this an incredible experience. So many gems dropped. This was recorded. I'm going to be posting it in the Facebook event. I'm going to be posting it on YouTube, on the Be Now Media account. And my name is Max. I am the founder of Be Now Media. We're a marketing and media firm, just in case you didn't know who I was. And I'm also a teacher at WCC,